What is up, guys? Welcome to another one of these vlogs where in this video I just want to discuss more or less why you don't really need a new computer and how this affects your coding. Because right now, just to give you a little bit of background information, I'm working on a very old computer, or not as old as you may think it is, but it's fairly old for what it is. It is a MacBook Pro from 2012, and the only thing I did over the past 9 years, was upgrade the RAM from 4 gigabytes to 16 gigabytes of RAM. Not that that changed much in its performance, it definitely did help, but that's all I did in the past 9 years, and it still works great. I still don't need a new computer. I'm not creating any high-level AI, and let me just list a few reasons why I believe that an old computer can even be better than a newer computer. So the first reason I believe an older computer can be better than a newer computer is that when you're writing code, you might notice that if you write bad code, your computer is going to take very long to process it. It's not used to making big calculations, which means it's not really ready to process that high demand of CPU power, which your computer does not have. So what does this really mean? It means that you're going to have to think of new ways to innovate to make your computer think faster. You're going to have to find ways to make your code much more efficient so you can do the same thing on your computer, which a better computer could do without even thinking. In a way, I think it's really good to have a computer that has low CPU and not that much potential, because it actually teaches you to innovate and to rethink your code and to make it much more efficient. And a very simple example is from what they had to do in Java back in the day, and that is actually have to define whether a number was a byte, a short, or even an integer. I mean, you still have to define that it is an integer today, but whether it's a byte or a short, you don't really have to think about that anymore because you have so much processing power that these are very insignificant differences. But going back to the previous example, if you actually do decide to use a byte for very small numbers, a short for a little bit bigger numbers, and an int for the proper size numbers, you're going to save some CPU and some calculation power, making your program very fast. And these things are always good to know. And I know that's a very basic example, but there are tons of other ways that you can save CPU and processing power in your programs. And once again, having an older computer forces you to do that. And of course, this does not cover machine learning or AI, because those calculations sometimes do require much better computers with much better CPU power. But for the majority of cases, what we had from 2016, what we had from 2014, is working perfectly fine for what we're doing today. Now, you might be asking, why am I bringing this up at all? Well, recently I decided to actually look into buying a new computer. Also because my computer is already about 10 years old and it's getting quite old. So I started looking at the new MacBooks because I'm addicted to MacBooks at the moment. And I know it's not efficient, and compared to Windows or Linux, you might not get the same amount of processing power for the money you invest. But recently they introduced a new MacBook with an M1 chip that is crazy powerful for the money you are paying. I've been just addicted with the idea of actually buying it, but the thing is, I don't really need it. My MacBook calculates everything at a proper speed. It's fast enough for what it does. It may be old, but I'm not creating any top-end AI yet, so it doesn't really matter. And even when I do start creating some very high-quality AI, and it's not even that recommended you buy a new computer if you are creating AI, because there are programs or sites online that have all that processing power that you need and are more than sufficient to do the tests that you are looking for. So maybe they cost €1, maybe they cost €10, but compared to how much you're willing to spend on a new computer, I think it's definitely more worth it to try using these sites rather than buying a computer with so much power that you'll probably only end up using for gaming. And you can always look at your slow processing power as a benefit, because that requires you to think harder when you're writing code, and also to be a bit more clever than just clicking the rerun button 1,000 times. You're actually going to have to think about your code and understand that it makes sense before running it, or you're going to waste a lot of time. I know for Android development it's nice to just be able to click on the run button and see your program compile immediately, but it's also good to just know that when you write code that you find logical, to rely on that actually compiling. So that was just a little bit about why you shouldn't invest in a new computer if you recently bought one, or if it's only about 5-6 years old. The main reason being is that while you're studying or learning how to code, whatever your computer is, chances are it is powerful enough to handle what you're learning. And once you start going professional, once you start freelancing or working for a company, I believe that's the perfect moment to invest into something that's fast, that saves you a lot of time, because that's when it really matters. That's when time is converted into money. But for your own projects, for your own learning experiences, I recommend using your old computer because it will teach you again to think out of the box, to actually create code that's efficient and more concise, and it just forces you to stay in that habit. But with that being said, I'm actually very curious to hear what you guys have to say about this. Otherwise, have a great day, and I'll see you guys in the next video.